girls' bathrooms. There's so much to that, but I wanted your thoughts on all this.
I gotta say, I finally heard something from Herschel Walker that I kind of agree with. I mean, he was talking about, well, we need to spend money on police retraining. You're right, we do, because so many officers don't understand what it means to de-escalate. They don't understand what the Constitution is, and they trample on people's rights. So if that's what Herschel Walker really means, that's great. I support him on that. I don't think that's what he means, though. I mean, I don't think he knows what he's talking about with that, with police retraining. He certainly doesn't know what he's talking about with, critical race theory or CTR, or well, I don't know. Is that somehow like, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR? Is that what he was talking about? Maybe he had that pumped on him. Look, Herschel Walker probably got hit a few too many times in the head in his illustrious football career, and that's fine. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. And I have a feeling the residents of Georgia, the voters of Georgia, they see through this. They know that he's only there because he's a friend of Donald Trump, and friends of Donald Trump, that's not enough to qualify you for public service.
At what point are they gonna realize that though? Because there's just general base support, but there's people who go to these rallies and it's just fun. Oh, we're going to the rally, it's gonna be fun. Donald Trump's gonna say some ridiculous things. He's gonna curse a few times and we're gonna lose our minds and it's gonna be great. But I wonder what percentage of these folks are convinced of any kind of voting decision or any kind of support or donations to certain people outside of Trump, because they have a reason for him every time. He's the ringleader of the racist wing of their party. But when it comes to these folks, how much are inspired who didn't hear what Herschel Walker had to say and then go up there and see him talk about CTR and then they go, that's my guy. Even if he got it right, what makes you think that him being in the Senate is gonna do something to change whether or not there's there's certain school districts across the country that do implement education to talk about how throughout the years we've implemented racism throughout so many realms of our society, and it just lives in it. That's what he's against, which he has no idea, but that understanding is something they want to detach people from. How many people really are buying that now? How many people are going with the hatred that Marjorie Greene was pushing there, talking about we want to keep those gays out of our girls' bathrooms? If you're worried about children, why aren't you trying to keep them out of the men's bathrooms?
Well, and if you're worried about having a successful rally, why don't you have an advanced person, I don't know, put some sort of Apple box there so it doesn't look like Marjorie Taylor Greene has a microphone coming out of her nose. I mean, I'm so glad that you pointed out this was sort of earlier you pointed out this is a sparsely attended rally. Donald Trump rallies are getting worse and worse, and there's a sign that things are starting to fall apart. Fewer people are going to them. Donald Trump is making less sense. You don't even have advanced people now who think, okay, maybe we need to, I don't know, have an Apple box or something so Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't look like a floating head behind the microphone. These rallies are coming apart. They are falling apart. They're not doing well. And these are all signs of continued disorganization and I think disinterest that a lot of Republicans have. And the only place you can find these rallies now are some of the extreme far-right networks like OAN. So, Donald Trump's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, the splintering of this party I think is gonna be fascinating because there's people who are looking when they're either gonna bet on the Mitch McConnell wing or the Donald Trump wing, because it's obvious those two are on both ends, even though they have 95% of things in common. Mitch McConnell just doesn't like Trump's approach. So we'll see which way he wins, because the party doesn't like him. They just think they need him because they have nothing else. They can't excite people the way this racist excites their base. That's just the way it is. Thank you, David, for joining us. Thank you guys for being here and enduring airplanes landing. My stuff knows.
JR, feel better, my man. Take care.
Thank you. I'm gonna work on it. We'll see if I can get back tomorrow with it more. Up next is John Iadarola with the Damage Report. I'm gonna go have some candy. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola.
And I'm Francesca Fiorentini, host of the Bitchuation Room podcast, which isn't this show.
It's not, but it's a great show, and it actually just happened yesterday. Briefly, what happened on the Bitchuation Room?
Well, it was pre-slap. You know, there is a pre-slap, post-slap world. But we did have Gianmarco Ceresi, a comedian, on. We talked all about Clarence Thomas and KBJ, and then we had Victoria Law, who is an author of Prisons Keep Us Safer and 20 Other Myths About Mass Incarceration. And it's such a great book, and she's excellent. So everybody check that out.
I actually really want to read that book now. But yeah, very glad to have you on. Very exciting. Everyone check out the Bitchuation Room. This is the Damage Report, though, your daily breakdown of, whatever, stuff that happens, including slap. No slap lawsuits, that's for John Oliver to cover, but we will be talking about the slap. But anyway, we got a lot that we're gonna be talking about. Thank you everyone for being here. Not only the stuff coming out of the Oscars, the slap, but more so we'll be critiquing people's outfits. There were some bold choices. Did you know shorts are back? And Timothée Chalamet, shirtless, everybody. But anyway, that was serious news that was coming across my newsfeed. But we've got dueling tax plans, including a right-wing tax plan so there are new taxes in it. I want you to guess who gets taxed in the new GOP tax plan. It's fascinating. Chris Wallace explaining why he fled Fox News. We've got people freaking out at Jack in the Box, and not just over how good those tacos are, and a lot of other stuff besides. So everyone, I'm gonna need you to buckle up, hold on to your butts, because we've got a lot of news coming at you. And before that, hit the like button, share the stream so that people know we're live. And with all that said, Francesca, are you ready to talk about some news?
I think so.
Well, we're about to. I see people doing the what did the five fingers say in the face thing. So I think they're ready as well. Let's jump into it.
Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Get my name out your mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's
G.I. Jane のジョークだったんです。
I'm going to, okay?
So that, of course, was from last night's Oscars. You're hearing it here first. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Did you know that? A lot of people watched it and missed that part of it, but no, it was very serious. Like there was a joke from Chris Rock, which we're gonna play in just a second. And as a result, Will Smith, who would go on to win an Oscar that night, walked up on stage and slapped him about as hard as a slap can land. It sounded like a punch. That's how hard of a slap it was, Francesca.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're gonna talk about it, but every time I see the footage, it's jarring. It is incredibly jarring, and it is scary to me to see somebody walk up to someone else on stage and just hit them. Like, I'm sorry, I'm like still kind of stunned and immediately like just completely taken aback. I think there's been a lot of jokes made on this, but mostly I'm just like jaw on the floor. Did that just happen?
Exactly, yeah, and there might be some jokes coming up, but yeah, because you think about like from Chris Rock's perspective, he sees Will Smith get up and start to walk, and he doesn't know, is Will Smith gonna come up and say something? Is he gonna come up and, I don't know. I doubt high up on the list of predictions was he's about to strike me really hard. Remember, he played Ali in a movie, and he wound up and full on slapped him. So, but let's get to what led to this. So the joke that preceded the slap, right here.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right. That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard.
The laughing stopped shortly thereafter. So you saw the joke. It was a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith potentially starring in G.I. Jane because she had her head shaved there. As I think everyone in the country now knows, I think maybe a lot of people knew before it. I don't know if Chris Rock did. She suffers from alopecia, an autoimmune disorder that causes hair loss. And I think understandably doesn't think that it's hilarious for a joke. So she rolled her eyes. And Francesca, a lot of people have noted that in the footage, initially Will Smith laughs at the joke. She didn't receive it well, and then his response came You're a professional funny person. What do you think about this as a choice? Like, it's hardly the most devastating joke we've heard from a host of the Oscars before. I mean, Ricky Gervais is like, that was nicer than anything Ricky Gervais said.
Oh my
so
God.
what do you think about all this?
I do think it is, complicated, and I absolutely understand that suffering from alopecia is not a joke, right? And in a normal world, right, we do not make fun of folks who have autoimmune disorders. It's in poor taste, etc. That being said, we're at the Oscars. Chris Rock is one of the most famous comedians in our country, if not the world. He made not only a joke, but like a bad old reference joke, G.I. Jane. I was like, wait a minute, is G.I. Jane 2 coming out for real? That was my first reaction. And you're like, you have to expect that this is a couple that puts all of their dirty laundry, so to speak, in front of everybody. They get paid millions to talk around their red table talk about their open relationship, about, past hurts, about everything, about family drama. And here you have Chris Rock making a stupid joke. Yeah, sure. And then he gets struck for it and nothing happens. Like, I think it was absolutely an overreaction. Absolutely an overreaction. And I do not think that the response to someone making fun of you can call it a disability or an autoimmune disorder. I don't think the response is a slap. Like, my thing is, we were even discussing whether like it was okay to hit Richard Spencer. Remember that? Remember there were some people like, I don't know. And you're like, no. Nazi's okay. Comedian doing his job on a softball joke. I can't see it another way.
Yeah, and I don't like the joke. Again, like, a lot of people have a lot of different problems about it. Not only because it's targeting a literal autoimmune disorder, but it's seen as both misogynistic and all like. And then obviously there's a lot of ongoing social stuff about black women's hair to begin with, and he did a movie called Good Hair, and now he's mocking her for the fact that she has to do a short. It's a complicated thing, obviously, and there's a few other wrinkles we're gonna get to, but I want to make sure that you know the context of what ended up happening, which is that despite that, and then the show just sort of continued. Like, everyone kind of like in the room, everyone's like, nothing happened. On Twitter, obviously, it blew up. But he did go on to finally win an Oscar after a lot of great movies and everything for King Richard, which I saw and I thought he was legitimately very good. So anyway, here is what happened when he went up to accept that.
Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family. Denzel said to me a few minutes ago, he said, at your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you.
So apparently Denzel Washington had consoled Will Smith. That's what all the news said, was that he consoled Will Smith after. I don't generally think of him as the person who needs to be consoled following that. Like, I think Chris Rock needs to be consoled. Jada needs to be consoled potentially. I think he's the least that needs to be consoled, but Denzel did talk to him and you got that message. He goes on to say, Will Smith, I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees. This is a beautiful moment and I'm not crying for winning an award. It's not about winning an award for me. It's about being able to shine a light on all of the people. And the Academy said, we don't condone violence of any form. Chris Rock is not pressing charges against him. Some people who'd previously, like I saw Ayanna Pressley had a tweet about alopecia and the immediate reaction to it, which seemed very supportive of what happened. She has since put out another tweet saying that she doesn't support, I'm a survivor, I don't endorse violence in any form. So she had taken down the earlier one. Now I want to add a little bit of context. Not a lot of people necessarily remember this, but Chris Rock had previously hosted the Oscars and made jokes about this couple back in 2016. He joked about Pinkett Smith and her husband boycotting over #OscarsSoWhite. Rock declared that the Smiths, as well as Black director Spike Lee, went mad over the issue as there were no Black acting nominees that year. And he said, quote, Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited. And then he goes on to say, Jada's mad her man Will was not nominated for Concussion. I get it. It's not fair that Will was this good and didn't get nominated. It's also not fair that Will was paid $20 million for Wild Wild West. So he had previously made jokes about it, but again, they are jokes. And like, I don't necessarily like some of these, but Ricky Gervais was joking about people's like history of alcoholism and drug abuse and things like that. Like this is hardly the farthest it's gone, and you do not you don't walk on stage literally anywhere to attack a performer. But you would think at the Oscars it would be the last place to happen, Francesca.
I mean, look, here's what I will say in Will Smith's defense. I have a huge temper as well. I have a crazy temper.
You do?
I do. It doesn't seem like it, but I can go off. You know what I mean? I can go off and get real mad. Someone pushes a button. My brother knows what I'm talking about, right? Siblings always know. I've gotten really mad. I've yelled and I've not hit. Well, I did throw pesto in his face one time. That was fun. But like, I get when you get mad at. Yeah, I wish. I get when you get mad and then I think those tears are such tears of guilt. Like, oh man, I kind of feel terrible about what I just did.
Yeah.
But it's heightened emotion, right? You got in a space, you got in your head, you didn't count to 10. I don't know if he's, if he is in the Church of Scientology, yikes, because you need therapy. I mean, we all need therapy.
Yeah.
This like the Thetans. This ain't Thetans, man. This is just you having a temper and you need to calm down. And the other thing I'm gonna say is this is a mega rich, multi-million-dollar couple. It's Jada Pinkett Smith. She is fine. I understand that she has an autoimmune disorder. She's also a millionaire and she will be fine. She will turn this around and monetize this moment and make hand over fist money. That is just facts. Same with Will Smith. Chris Rock, also a millionaire, but like not a like movie star, mega movie star. It's just the peak fragility. I understand people have to have thick skin, and Will Smith was like, we're expected to have thick skin. I totally agree with that. I don't think it's right to like yell at celebrities in the street or have a pile-on for no reason in the media. But like one joke, you're in the front row, man. That means you just won an Oscar, bro. Like,
or you're nominated. Like you're as high profile as it gets. And yeah, I don't think. I mean, was it about the joke? Yes, it was about the joke. Was it totally about the joke? No. I think there's a lot that's feeding into that. I think that is the spark. The fuel was there, but in real time, everyone across the country was reacting to what happened at the Oscars. And so I wanna just reveal a few of those reactions in real time. I was doing my writing group, my wife texted me that it had happened and I thought, well, she's clearly exaggerating what happened or it was a joke. Nope, she wasn't exaggerating. She was underselling it to some extent, but Sitting Bull tweeted the people that were sitting next to Will Smith and laughed at that joke, and it's a photo of them receding into the background. Sam Brody is saying interacting with other people before the pandemic versus interacting with people after. Like, yes, it had been much more collegial earlier on.
So true.
Duncan Jones saying put a bug in every limo in Hollywood tonight, because a lot of celebrities were asked by like Variety and other places about it, but they're being very careful. Would have been fascinated to hear their true thoughts about that. One of my favorite comedians tweeted, "Now I need to see Kim Cattrall beat the S out of Ricky Gervais," and that's Francesca, and that's hilarious. I like Ricky Gervais. I like his shows. I think his comedy is not necessarily great. It's a little bit hacky, but I think his shows
isn't great. Yes, but I will say I go back and watch his Golden Globes performance multiple times a year. Like at least once a year, I'm like, I'm gonna go back and watch this. And yeah, he like lays into the entire cast of Sex and the City. He's like best makeup or artist or whatever is like whoever did the work on those ladies. Like we know you're not 40, just being really ageist and sexist and whatever. And they took it. I mean, they weren't like happy, but it was like they didn't look. Anyone who says women are emotional, even though I just said that I get very hot-headed, like come on, you know what I'm saying? And if it were a woman, oh my God, ladies, can you imagine if it was like one of us? We would have been like, oh, I was on my rag, like super PMS-y. That's exactly what I would have said. No. I would have been like,
okay, I was gonna get to that, but let's pause on this. Obviously, look, this is a big thing. It's Will Smith, it's Chris Rock. The fact that they're not just at the Oscars, but they're among the biggest stars in the world or whatever. In this case, they're both black men. You change any other facet of this demographically, like if it had been Emma Stone slapping Jessica Chastain, if it had been Will Smith slapping Chris Pratt,
right?
Like it is already obviously, there's a lot of discourse, I will say. But in some ways, I think we avoided some of the worst. Like the right is already gonna be terrible when it comes to this. But anyway, I appreciated your comment. The Lucas Bro says every comedian should post a Will Smith joke in solidarity with Chris Rock. I'm not, but every other comedian should. That's not bad. And Kathy Griffin, I think, with a serious point, saying, let me tell you something, it's a very bad practice to walk up on stage and physically assault a comedian. Now we all have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters. Especially because, look, there are a lot of people who think that what happened was awesome. Not just dramatic or entertaining, but awesome. He's defending his wife in some form, but he's also assaulting a performer. There are a lot of people who are a lot less worried than Will Smith off camera assaulting someone potentially. So I am worried about, like, we already see flight attendants and bartenders and people working at Panera are routinely getting harassed and assaulted for just doing their job. I am a little bit worried about the ripple effects from this, Francesca. What about you? You perform on stage.
Well, it happens frequently. I mean, that someone is asked to leave because they're heckling, they're being too loud, they're being aggressive. And sometimes those people even try and rush the stage like that. It has not, thank God, happened to me, knock on wood, but it definitely has happened. People like suddenly, again, there is no barrier between performer and the audience. People are like, it's my entire Netflix screen. I'm gonna get up in your face, And so, and especially now, I know people, and I've done benefit shows for like things like, abortion rights and pro-choice causes. And I think there's a lot of people, 9 times out of 10, performers are women. And there's some fear. There's some like, look, we don't know in this day and age, the number of people who are armed, who are open carry. God, every state essentially is an open carry state. What are we like up to like 30 now? Yeah. Who knows who's armed? And people aren't walking through metal detectors when they get into most comedy clubs. So, and even if like, so it is really scary. It is a very, very scary time. And I totally agree with Kathy Griffin that like someone will think that they can just do that. And like, will Chris Rock go to Will Smith's next, next like movie filming and go to the trailer and just smack him? He's doing his job. Job.
Yeah, exactly. Also want to give credit to a friend of the show, Ken Klippenstein, who tweeted, I am calling for a no-fly zone around Chris Rock. Funny and timely. And I also saw someone, I don't remember who it was, but they just tweeted, I got in one little fight and my mom got scared. That's pretty funny.
So good.
That's funny. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, dueling tax plans. Joe Biden's got a pretty bold one that he totally, I'm sure, is gonna fight for. And the GOP's awful tax plan and a whole lot more besides after this. Okay, everybody. Before we jump in the comments, let me just briefly say, guys, I understand you're not gonna always love everything that we choose to cover. I choose for the rundown what I find interesting. I apologize, like we're doing a wage inequality story. We're gonna do tax plans in just a sec. How many times have I talked about the Thwaites Glacier and see, like sometimes I just want to come out of the weekend and talk about something that I found interesting. I apologize. We're not doing it because we feel we have to. I choose a rundown based on what I'm interested in.
Don't be so joyless and irrelevant, you guys. This is how the left loses. Everyone's talking about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and by the way, you're told. I love that you have preferences. I'm not saying not to have preferences or anything, and I want you to express it. But like occasionally, this is my life. Like there's a lot harder jobs. I've had them, but we have to do stuff like
John needs a little break.
Like like everybody will say like thanks for keeping me sane. I'm also trying to keep me sane. So it's entertaining, people. I apologize. Thank you for the feedback. I love y'all. I love the feedback, including criticism. But anyway, with that said, let's jump into some comments, including Dangle Bengal, who's been a tier 1 member for 9 months, says, Will is right to slap Chris. Will was slapping back at Chris for degrading every last woman last night. Well, there's definitely disagreement. Can we get a Twitch poll? Was he right to do it or not? I'm just curious. Anyway, Jedi Dragon, member for 16 months, says, I have alopecia and had no idea until last night that Jada does too. Don't know whether Chris Rock did, but it's overreaction. Love you, Francesca and John. That is an interesting perspective, especially from someone who has experienced it. Thaddeus Nell, Philosopher Stone Dragon, has been a tier 2 member for 16 months, says 13 months. Much love for John, for Francesca, the TDR crew and the Dragon Squad from the Philosopher Stone Dragon. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Also, so tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube get a weekly top 10 list. We had a recommendation, top 10 reasons we're looking forward to the summer. I think we're gonna have fun with it. I am actually very much looking forward to the summer, so we're gonna talk about it. Jedi Dragon, member for 16 months, says, I have alopecia and had no idea. Oh, wait, that's the same one. Well, thank you, Jedi Dragon, I apologize. Was double two, thank you. That was double two. We're getting a lot of doublings in the document today. Comrade Dragon, tier 3 member for 16 months says, good morning, Dragons. It's terrifying post-slap world. Well, for other reasons potentially, but you are right. And hope to see you in the tier 3 members hangout this Thursday, I believe. Okay, it's coming up Thursday. We'll give you more details. We hang out, chit chat with the tier 3 members. Matthew Petranovich, welcome to tier 2 membership. Thank you for being with us. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon sent us a super chat to say, when we fought like this when we were little, mom would punish the both of us because neither of us were right. 2 grown-ass men don't get this. What does it say to their kids? Well, I think in the discourse, there is criticism of both, certainly. Nobody's getting formally punished. So just Tucker Carlson, it's not cancel culture. Can we get through this without trying to draw everything into cancel culture?
No, it's gonna be black on black crime. Just wait.
Oh God, it totally is.
It's gonna be bad. It's going to be very bad.
I don't want it.
Be violent
Why couldn't
movies.
it be Chris Evans slapping Chris Pratt? Come on. Or Will Arnett, like if you want the names to be
the
similar.
Wills and the Chris's.
Come on, just, oh God. Couldn't it have been like Alicia Vikander slapping Florence Pugh or something? Like we could have gotten through, they still would have talked about it in a creepy way, but it would have been different. Anyway, Jake VX says in a super chat, this just got fantastic up in here. Oh, hi, John. Thank you.
Oh, hi, John.
Let's see. Paolo says, we got to ask ourselves why the media wants to distract us with Smith slap, so no one talks about how Dune lost Best Picture.
Ooh,
that's good. Dune lost Best Picture probably because it is one of the most joyless movies I've ever seen. Like, no. I love sci-fi, and I love the idea of Zendaya being in it, but they were lying in all those trailers. Anyway, more after this. Stay tuned to the next break for more hot takes on Dune and its awards chances. But for now, this.
You recently put out an 11-point plan to rescue America, 2 of the big points of which are, quote, all Americans should pay some income tax to have skin in the game, even if a small amount. Currently, over half of Americans pay no income tax. It also says all federal legislation sunsets in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. So that would raise taxes on half of Americans and potentially sunset programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Why would you propose something like that in an election year?
Sure, well, John, that's of course the Democrat talking points. It's a
no, it's in the plan. It's in the plan.
But here's the thing about reality for a second. First of all, let's talk about Medicare.
But Senator, hang on, John. So it's not a Democratic talking point. It's in the plan.
Yeah, and the Grim Reaper there didn't have a good answer for that. That was a tough question coming from a Fox. It was John Roberts? His name's John Roberts, I think. Anyway, John Roberts, probably because the Republican establishment apparently not big fans of Rick Scott's tax plan there, as we'll get into. But the idea of launching into the election season as the right tries to brand itself as populist, literally raising taxes on the poorest people in America, including millions and millions and millions of poor conservatives, is an interesting idea. Getting rid of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all these programs that, look, Rick Scott is not alone as a Republican in hating these and wanting to destroy them, but most of them are savvy enough to know that that's not gonna be popular with their base. But Rick Scott, he's beyond all this. He doesn't care that an estimate from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy says that Scott's plan would increase taxes by more than $1,000 on average for the poorest 40% of Americans. Poorest 40% of Americans, I've always thought, have way too much of a financial buffer between them and economic catastrophe. Let's cut that down by $1,000. By the way, how it would affect Republican strongholds. States where more than 40% of residents would face tax increases are Mississippi, West Virginia, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Georgia, New Mexico, South Carolina, and Florida, where he's a senator. So at least admittedly, he's subjecting his own constituents to it. Francesca, what do you think?
I mean, cue the lady in Starbucks who went off on him that day when he had the gall to show his face, and she just screamed at him and was like, "You've ruined this state." And one of the things is, that she was talking about, she's from Florida, and everyone was on board that was in that Starbucks was like that Rick Scott has done things when he was governor of Florida, like refusing to expand Medicaid, which again is covered by 90% by the federal government under Obamacare. But because they can't go for anything that a Democrat proposed, and especially not Obama, Republicans still hold out on the poorest and most vulnerable people in their states. It's insane. It is punishment. And so now to turn around and be like, these people who I have denied healthcare to, affordable healthcare or free healthcare to for years, I'm gonna charge them even more because they're not paying enough in taxes, or they're not paying anything in taxes. It's like, it blows my mind. I mean, and to think like $1,000 might not seem like a lot, but again, I keep on coming back to the $400 unforeseen expense. And if your taxes go up a 1 year to the next by $1,000, well, that's food coming off your table straight up.
Yeah, exactly. They always cite the $400 that a significant percentage couldn't, like a catastrophe. Republican governance is 2.5 catastrophes a year, just in this. Like, forget everything else. And then to hide behind, well, those are just Democrat talking points. Dude, you wrote the plan. And bear in mind, it's not just that, like, if you dig into the bill on page 700, you discover these horrible things going on. We covered, what was it 1 month ago, 2 months ago, his little write-up of like the top 20 points about it. He was enthusiastic about all this. You can't then say that this is like a plot that like Rachel Maddow and John Oliver cooked up to kill your plan. You were advertising it, buddy. But anyway, he is going to be asked some follow-up questions about the sunsetting part. Let's take a look at that.
He said not everyone agrees with it, and one of the people that doesn't agree with it is Mitch McConnell. Here's what he said.
Let me tell you what would not be a part of our agenda. We will not have as part of our agenda a bill that raises taxes on half of the American people and sunsets Social Security and Medicare within 5 years. That will not be part of a Republican Senate majority agenda.
Now, a few days after he said that, you penned a Wall Street Journal op-ed about your plan titled, "Why I'm Defying Beltway Cowardice." Are you calling Mitch McConnell a coward?
God.
I guess he is. And look, for the right-wing base, he's supposed to attack Mitch McConnell. They don't like Mitch McConnell. But in this case, the old crow has a point. This would be like, imagine if more Republicans signed on to this plan. That's the Democratic strategy right there. They want to raise your taxes by $1,000. They want to raise your taxes by $1,000. They want to raise it by $1,000. Oh, and by the way, your sweet old grandma, yeah, she's gonna be starving because she's not gonna have Social Security. She's not gonna have Medicare. All those great programs that have stopped us from having an epidemic of senior citizens just needlessly passing away every winter. Yeah, he wants to get rid of those. Honestly, Rick Scott, like, dude, go off. Just do your thing. I hope you get a lot of support.
Go for it. I love, you're so right. Old crow, old turtle is correct. I mean, he understands. He might be evil, but he understands what things are politically unpopular, right? Just like that's why he went along with Trumpism essentially. I mean, Trump was a perfect Trojan horse for him and has been because it's popular. And then when he feels like he has to be like, well, it's not good to overthrow an election, whatever. And but then, this he's like, no, you're insane. If you think that you can get away with taking away Social Security and Medicare, you're crazy. These are also all things that were called socialist when they were floated by Democrats, right? And look where we are now. These are wildly popular, right? Yeah. Now here's the problem, John. We've got our Democrats. We've got the Democrats we've got. So my guess is they could get away with something like this, and Democrats wouldn't even pick up that mantle of, hey, look who actually raised your taxes. All we wanted to do was raise taxes on corporations, millionaires and billionaires, and make our tax structure fair. But like these guys, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't have strategy.
Yeah, well, here's what they would do. They do the same thing that they're doing as we careen towards Roe v. Wade being overturned. Like, that's bad, but it's something to run against after they've nuked it.
I'm so mad. I don't.
Great, Democrats.
John, don't get me. Let's talk about the slap again. You're getting me mad.
Exactly. No. Let's talk about the slap that Biden wants to give to the millionaires and the billionaires, supposedly. So this is his plan, by the way. He wants to unveil a new minimum tax on billionaires in his budget. Okay, you have my curiosity. The White House will unveil a new minimum tax as part of its 2023 budget today, proposing a tax on the richest 700 Americans for the first time, according to 5 people with knowledge on the matter in an administration document obtained by the Washington Post. The billionaire minimum income tax plan under President Biden would establish a 20% minimum tax rate on all American households worth more than $100 million. That is such a high threshold. The majority of new revenue raised by the tax would come from billionaires, obviously. White House officials estimate the tax would raise roughly $360 billion in new revenue over the next 10 years if enacted. The proposal was developed by Biden aides at the OMB, the Treasury Department, and the White House National Economic Council. And that is, look, that is not a wealth tax. This is not the stuff we've been talking about over the past few years. It's an income tax. And again, the con that they've gotten away with for a very long time is when you are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, your income isn't the thing that you're making most money off of. That's not actually how it works, but it would be something. The issue is, I think, and Francesca, feel free to disagree, while they have 5 people familiar with that matter, the tax, I have some people who are familiar with the composition of the Senate.
Yeah.
And of Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who I've checked, let me Google it, are still alive and drawing breath. So not exactly sure what the chances are for this thing, but what do you think?
Isn't it amazing? They're just sort of the like 2 harbingers of death. Like one doesn't want to raise taxes on anybody. One doesn't want any more social safety net. And like they've just got, it's like a Chinese finger trap situation here. And that's what it is. And it's brilliant. And
are we the trap or are we a finger? I think they're the fingers and we're the trap.
I think, don't think about it too hard. You know what I'm saying?
They've been fingering us for too long.
They've definitely been figuring us for too long, metaphorically. I will say I am heartened that there is a movement in this direction. I do not think 20% is enough. I'm sorry. And certainly there needs to be definition of what revenue is, as you just pointed out. Most millionaires and billionaires are making money on their assets. So revenue, it feels more like what is your gain, and the gains of like their stock prices are never reported, or at least they don't have to pay taxes on them until they sell those stocks. But I do think in terms of OMB and in terms of the Treasury Department, like it signifies a shift. There may be a discussion going down. I like that discussion. I know there are some former hedge fund people also littered throughout this administration, some former Goldman Sachs folks up in there. But I also know there are people who know what they're actually talking about and they actually want to make a more fair tax structure. And this is at a time, I just want to mention this, in 2 years, the number of billionaires in this country has increased and their wealth. So we've got now 704 billionaires in this country, and their total wealth increased by 57% to $1.7 trillion. So now their total wealth is reached 4.6 trillion. This is from Americans for Tax Fairness. So they just came out with this earlier in March. Like so much. This is at a time, who has more money right now? Who has like more breathing room right now? No, hardly anybody. And they're like, oh, you're essential and this and that. Oh, we've got to cut costs. Oh, the supply chain. BT dubs, we're making a killing while you're literally dying.
Exactly, yeah, doing better. Their wealth is up, corporations, their profits are up. So weird how we still end up with higher prices and they're getting more and more money.
Yeah, huh?
But I'm sure Biden is committed to this. Look, I like that the sorts of promises they'll run on but not really mean are increasingly progressive false promises. That's something, I guess. We'll see how it goes. I hear Joe Manchin wants like $500 billion to deal with the climate. So, good stuff coming in the spring.
Clean coal.
Anyway, clean coal, we're gonna get it, we're gonna clean it. Anyway, with that said, we gotta switch to something else. So let's jump into this next video.
Sexual perversion that goes on in Washington. I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, remember the average age is probably 60 or 70.
After 18 years, this is my final Fox News Sunday. It is the last time, and I say this with real sadness, we will meet like this. But after 18 years, I have decided to leave Fox. I want to try something new, to go beyond politics to all the things I'm interested in. I'm ready for a new adventure, and I hope you'll check it out.
So that was Chris Wallace back in the middle of December of last year, announcing that he'd be leaving Fox News after being an anchor there for about 350 years. And he made it seem as if the main reason was wanting to try something new. He wanted to get into like Real Housewives live reactions or something, I don't know. But it turns out now he is revealing, with a couple months of a buffer after he's moved on from Fox, that it actually wasn't about him, it was about them. He says that life became unsustainable there as he starts his new streaming show. Bear in mind, of course, as he slams Fox News, a lot of this is to promote his new CNN streaming show, which we'll get into. But he said that it was unsustainable, increasingly so after the 2020 election, saying, I'm fine with opinion, conservative opinion, liberal opinion, but when people start to question the truth, who won the 2020 election, was January 6th an insurrection, I found that unsustainable. I spent a lot of 2021 looking to see if there was a different place for me to do my job. He says after Donald Trump lost, a period when the channel ended its 7 p.m. newscast, fired the political editor who helped project a Trump loss in Arizona on election night, which was totally true and the right call to make, and promoted hosts like Mr. Carlson, Tucker, who downplayed the January 6th riot. He confirmed reports that he was also so alarmed by Mr. Carlson's documentary Patriot Purge that he complained directly to Fox News management. And although he doesn't go in depth into how that was received and what changes were made based on his complaints, I think we can sum it up as a big old goose egg. They didn't care. It's Chris Wallace versus Tucker Carlson, who's bringing in the money for Fox News. The issue I have, Francesca, is that he is right to point out all of these issues, and Fox has gotten noticeably worse even since that last election. But it's not like they had a strong commitment to the truth 15 years ago. It's not like they weren't warmongers and xenophobes and homophobic and all that stuff. So what do you think about his explanation for why he left just a few months ago? He left.
I mean, I don't know. I think that he just had a really high tolerance for BS, and maybe enjoyed the fact that he felt smarter than his coworkers. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. Like, I do think there is a demonstrable difference between people like Bill O'Reilly and Tucker Carlson. I think Bill O'Reilly did speak more in dog whistle, and Tucker Carlson just is a walking, whistle. And they've swallowed it, and they're just like, it's like when you swallow a squeak toy or whatever. Anyway, the point is, they're like squeaker.
It's happened to me. I get it. I remember.
Yeah. You know when you swallow a squeak toy? Is that just me? But yeah, there's another part in, I think, his statement of why he left, which is, I guess it took me a while to learn. Like, yeah, buddy, I think your eyes weren't open. I think you knew kind of what was going on, but yeah, you woke up and people were just floating alternate facts like Trump actually won the election. And I do think it is scary to say that this person who reported accurately on those election results was summarily fired. Yeah. And Chris Wallace can have his pick of the litter. He can go wherever he wants. Also, he did a terrible job moderating that presidential debate. So there's also that.
I remember it being somewhat mixed. I think he yielded a lot to them, but look, Chris Wallace is 40% of the times Fox News isn't the worst thing in the universe. Yeah. It's like you very rarely get a Ducey comment that's okay, maybe a Geraldo, but Chris Wallace, he would ask somewhat tough questions. But bearing in mind, it's not that he was ever our ally. He was just a less committed to being horrible Republican. He was an actual Republican, which meant he held a lot of policy views that we would find abhorrent, a lot of personal views that we'd probably find equally abhorrent. But it wasn't the Tucker Carlson model. It wasn't the Glenn Beck model or anything like that.
Well, but and I also think that he wasn't an opinion show. Like, sure, every question, I mean, I don't believe there can be such thing as objectivity in news, but arguably the Chris Wallace's show was much more about asking straight questions and sort of like doing some real reporting. And that's the thing, and it goes with liberal media too, right? Or so-called liberal media, CNN or MSNBC, where there is no disclaimer. Hey, now we've started the opinion portion of our evening, right? There is no media savvy. So the lines between, oh, this is the NBC that is reporting the news, and this is the NBC that is crafting a very elaborate argument about one thing in particular, and I don't like, and it's mostly just opinion and panel shows of opinion people. Like,
sure,
it's difficult, and I think that Wallace was like the last vestige of actual straight reporting, and that honestly, as we all know, it gets fewer views, fewer clicks. It's not confirmation bias, and people don't want to watch that stuff. They just want to be told that their QAnon conspiracies are correct.
That they're beautiful and they smell great and their hair is very soft. That's what they want to be told.
Yes. What do we do?
Sorry, everybody. It turns out that when you criticize Fox News, sometimes they hack into your system. Anyway, so he was criticized for the ratings of his show over 18 years. Look, over 18 years, the fact that he never did better, I guess, is an indictment of him, but it also could be an indictment of the Fox News audience. Maybe the right wing just isn't interested in that stuff. And Fox has moved on, not only from Chris Wallace, but they now regularly will have their straight news programs take clips from last night's Tucker Carlson and discuss them. Jesus. Just like, hey, wasn't that a great point that Tucker made? But that's what his show is. So anyway, Chris Wallace is now doing a CNN Plus series. It's not gonna be for me or for Franny or anything. And I think it's kind of funny that you can so smoothly transition from Fox over to CNN, but whatever. I think it's nice to have a little bit of a look into what seemingly somewhat sane Republicans think about Fox News' course.
Yeah,
Any
I mean,
final thoughts?
That's what this show does. Tucker Carlson clips from the night before. They don't need to do that.
Exactly. Well, and we don't just agree with him. We try to provide a little bit of context. Thankfully, not today. We do have some baddies, but I don't think Tucker Carlson. Anyway, with that said, I'm not going to risk the hazy technical state that we're in. We're going to go to our second break. When we come back, though, we're launching a new segment. So everyone, don't go anywhere. Okay, that got exciting for a little bit. Even once we were back, my preview monitor was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But anyway, it seems like we're good now. So let's see what's going on out there in the audience. Stone Eagle Dragon sent in a very generous super chat. Thank you for that. Says, too alarming now to talk about. Take your pictures down and shake it out. Truth or consequence, say it aloud. Use that evidence, race it around. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. Rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. It took me like a line into that before I realized what you're doing. Yes, so Taylor Hawkins passed away, I believe, at the age of 50.
Yeah.
So obviously incredibly sad. So thank you for that tribute there. Guest sent in a super chat to say Rick Scott equals Gollum. That's it. And that's really all you need, honestly. Imagine watching Rick Scott eat a fish. Anyway, Moondragon says, I support your attempt to stay sane. Thank you, I need that. Aqualis Gordon, my best friend Quay, he sent in a message that was just a little kissy face. Thank you, Quay, for being here for the show. And by the way, no sooner had he done that than Ravaging Wolverine says, at Aqualis Gordon, good to see you. I enjoyed when you were on the show in the past. It has been a bit, but look at this lurking in the background fan base. Perhaps in the very near future, you will have an opportunity to hear me and Quay talking about some non-political stuff. I'm not gonna say anything more about it, but anyway. Industrial Arts Denver, Colorado sent in a super chat to say, so excited to hear another person say BT dubs. I think that was you, Francesca, I believe.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Dr. Morticia just sent a, what's that?
It's fun.
It is. Dr. Morticia sent in a comment to say, I miss seeing John actually put pictures of trash people in a trashy. Trashy has a job, free Trashy to do his job. Yeah, that's like pre-pandemic. We used to get an actual photo. We will return to that at some point once I convince Francesca to do the show in studio. Anyway.
I'm not there on Fridays.
Maybe someday.
Convince Brett.
Yeah,
I'll come in, fine.
That might be even harder, actually. Carmen Maria, tier 2 member for 15 months, says, what he did was wrong, but I have seen people saying she overacted as well, and that I don't agree with either. Well, she only rolled her eyes. I think she overreacted the least out of everyone. There's a case to be made that I've overreacted more than Jada Pinkett Smith. Anyway, Utter Bullspit, tier 2 member for 4 months, says, I've been a member for 3 months, recognize me. That's like the 4-month version of the 13 thing. Well, thank you for being here. Kay Gillette says, we love you guys. You can talk about whatever you want. Keep up the good work. Thank you. And again, when I respond to the criticism, it is not to say that the criticism is invalid. I do appreciate it. And we need it. I need to know what you guys care about, but just sometimes. Anyway, Dystopian Dragon, tier 3 member for 15 months, says, FUBAR. And that was it, but thank you for being with us. Charlene Vochta, member for 15 months, says, actually 13 months. Thank you for being here regardless of for whatever amount. Let's see, Stray X, member for 15 months, says, Will Smith verified Bad Boys 3. He was practicing being a cop, assaulting someone on camera with no repercussions. That's not bad. Thank you, Stray X. Anyway, Kurt Von A says, Fran and John are fantastic together. I agree. Thank you for the comment. I actually really love doing the show with Francesca. We've gotten to do a lot of shows together, and it's just always such a like comfy environment. I like it. I don't feel stressed like I do with something.
Bring it in.
Exactly. Anyway, that got weird. By the way, the poll did happen on the slap on Twitch. 75% called the slap bad and uncalled for. 25% said justified and good. That's about what I would have thought it broke down to. Are you not merciful? Anyway, we're gonna talk about a lot more, so don't go anywhere, including your comments, by the way. There's some funny ones there. We'll get to those after this. Okay, everybody, let's have a little bit of fun with the 11 minutes we have to close out the hour. I was a little bit worried we're gonna launch into that. Over the weekend, monsters, true baddies dwell in the shadows, knowing that TDR doesn't go live on Saturday and Sunday to identify their vile deeds. But we are here on Monday, and thus I give you the Monday Menace.
And you know what? Pete Buttigieg can take his electric vehicles and his bicycles, and he and his husband can stay out of our girls' bathrooms.
Yep. It's not just the delivering of the line, it's a finishing going, yep, nailed it, Margie. So that was Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman, in some ways and not in others. She was speaking at a rally headlined by Donald Trump, and she is not gonna let him be the most vile person at the rally. So in case it wasn't clear there, Pete Buttigieg and his husband can stay out of girls' bathrooms because she doesn't even understand the talking points that are being used. March, listen. They've moved on from the outright demonization of gay individuals to some extent. They realize that's not popular. Now they're targeting on a daily basis the trans community as supposedly being predators, when in fact it is far more likely that they will be assaulted in bathrooms than anyone else. But she just mixes it all up. She knows that she doesn't like Pete Buttigieg. She hates that he's gay and has a husband. And so they are predators now, Francesca. They're going into bathrooms for little girl. They're gay. They don't want girls of any kind, little or not. There's so much I want to explain to her about the world and how it works. What do you think?
I just love that she threw in like everything, you know, with their bicycles and their vegan cheese and Encanto and they just what?
Their matcha lattes.
And their matcha lattes. And they went in there to be a different gender. You nailed it. Like anything that is a boogeyman, throw it all in and just mix it up in your cauldron, Margie, and sip it and spew it out. That's it makes no sense. But yeah, also kind of a teachable moment between gender and sexuality. They are two different things. Yeah, gay cis men still identifying as men would not want to be in a girl's bathroom. Correct?
I think it is an opportunity for us to learn. Of course, our audience probably has the least need for learning out of anyone, but the people in that audience definitely could. And again, it's the mixing up. I know that you want to imply that every gay man secretly is a pedophile, even for the other gender for some reason. But why you gotta throw like the electric cars in there? Like, why is it gotta take your wind turbines and your cauliflower
and your Prius?
Why do you have to mix it up? Like why is she against
do your
whites?
butt stuff in the Prius? I'm sorry.
Got a hatchback. I don't know. She does CrossFit. Why is she against exercise on a bicycle? If you can bike to work, that's a great option. Gas prices are through the roof, and she's demonizing non-fossil fuel transportation. But it got a pretty good response, not necessarily an amazing response. By the way, this follows on from a recent tweet that we didn't ever read, but where she had said, we don't have this. The Taliban is closing schools for girls above 6th grade. Democrats are replacing girls with boys in girls' sports. They both have no respect for girls or women. Don't try to do foreign policy. It's not your strong suit. I don't know what is your strong suit, but it ain't that. And just like she's our Monday Menace because we want you to know that the outright demonization of the LGBTQ community never ends. Newsmax was attacking Pete Buttigieg for having kids. Recently, the right was attacking Dave Rubin and his husband for adopting. Like Dave Rubin, that is the only thing he's done in years that isn't offensive, and that's the thing you attack him for? That's a perfectly fine thing that he did. But they're attacking Pete Buttigieg for taking paternity leave. Look, for them, Pete Buttigieg is a convenient way to attack gay men and have plausible deniability. Pretend that it's just about Pete Buttigieg. It's not about their homophobia, which it very much is.
No, and it is. And I think the Dave Rubin stuff was incredibly revelatory to say that, look, the Republican Party and I think even the MAGA movement to some extent, has tried to actually co-opt, I think, like a certain amount of like pro LGBTQ plus language, it's not really about your personal identity. It is about your politics, and we accept specifically gay cis white men. Like we're into that. Like that's fine. I mean, remember Milo Yiannopoulos had his moment, and there have been others who've been like sort of right wing stars. And no, man, there's a ceiling. There is a ceiling if you are gay and you are on the right. And guess what? It's Roe v. Wade now, but they're coming for marriage equality. Mark my words, with this Supreme Court, even with the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming for Augerfeld.
I agree.
And they're gonna overturn it. They just will. It's going to happen unless we mount a defense against it. But again, with these Democrats, very difficult.
Exactly, yeah, there's no proactive defense. It's just another thing they'll fundraise off of. Anyway, with that said, we do have to go into one of the weirdest little brief stories. Let's jump into this video.
Sexual perversion that goes on in Washington. I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, but the average age is probably 60 or 70. And I look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to like, well, hey, we're gonna have kind of a sexual get together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Or the fact that there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove addiction in our country, and then you watch them do a key bump of cocaine right in front of you, and it's like, wow, this is wild.
Did he say a kilo of cocaine?
Key
bump. Okay, I don't know the terminology. I haven't been invited to such fabulous parties. Anyway, that's Madison Cawthorn. may be telling the truth. We're gonna debate it briefly. Talking about people he looked up to, so presumably Republican politicians, maybe Republican lobbyists, I don't know, but people in DC. He doesn't sound like this sounds like a QAnon thing. There's these elite sex parties, but he said he looks up to these people, so I'm assuming they're not Democrats. What do you think, Francesca? Because he's a massive liar. Is he being asked to come to orgies by these Republican politicians?
I mean, sure. You know what I mean? Like, I super believe it. Lindsey Graham. I mean, tell me you're not talking about Lindsey Graham. Hello. I think Graham for sure. Anyone who mentioned the words child pornography during the hearing of Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're definitely key swapping as well as key bumping. Shuddering. I like part of me is just like, I need to go puke now, thinking of some of these senators and congresspeople in any kind of like orgy situation. Like, I just imagine them with their like sort of like knobby knees and tall socks and just, you know what I mean, walking around.
Socks
with like
stay on.
Yeah, socks are always on. It's just a Rudy Giuliani situation. Look, there's a lot of weirdos in DC, and there's a lot of money. And every time there's money and power, you're gonna have coke and orgies. It's probably gonna happen.
That's true. Thus, me not experiencing either. Okay, so we're not sure, but he's supposed to be brave, right? These are establishment Republicans that don't share your values. So why are you being so vague and anonymous? Why don't you name some names, Madison Cawthorn? Anyway, we got a lot more to get to. Don't go anywhere. Couple-minute break. Francesca and I will be back after this. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna get to your comments in just a second. There was just one more little video attached to the last story that I just want to briefly talk about. So let's jump into that.
America. And I have a lot of zeal, I have a lot of charisma, I've got a lot of aggression, and I never back down. I'm happy to take those things on, but I realize at 26 years old, I don't have a whole lot of wisdom at this age of my life. So I was very happy to get to team up with Speaker Newt Gingrich and have him get to help.
So then, like, why are you there? Like, if you attribute to yourself, I think, in a weird way, okay, you have zeal, I guess. You're trying to indicate that you're a religious wacko, and you're aggressive, sure. You love to threaten political violence and everything. You have a lot of charisma, okay, I'll leave that to your base or whatever. But if you don't believe that you have wisdom, why would you think that you should be the representative in Congress for hundreds of thousands of people? Like, think about that. You're supposed to have humility, by the way, if you're a Christian. So he is humble enough to know that he doesn't have wisdom, but thinks that he should lead all of these people. And look at all the missteps, Francesca. Just crazy scandals throughout, like a lot of them involving calls for further insurrections, gun stuff. He doesn't have wisdom. He's accurate in that, but it's consequential. I wish he would take it more to heart.
I don't know. I think it's great. I think Madison Cawthorn's being, just fully transparent. Look, I am, I'm an empty vessel, and you can fill me with whatever nonsense. Russia, hell yeah. January 6th stuff, let's take that too. I got a little bit of Gingrich. You just fill me up, and I will literally just repeat anything you tell me to repeat. I'm a parrot.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. Like,
basically,
someone's being a little honest about it.
For once.
But he shouldn't be in office.
Okay. No, he shouldn't be in any position of authority. I wouldn't trust him to manage employees. Anyway, with that said, you guys sent a lot of great comments. But first, you sent more than just comments, didn't they, Francesca?
Oh yes, Blue Lizard Guts made me and gave me at the Brooklyn show this incredible Funko of me. This is me about to get slapped by Will Smith with a microphone here. And there's a stool. So this is me doing stand up, but then there's an even better part, which is that Chitty is here. So I'm sorry it's out of focus. There's a little, so Chitty sits on the stool behind me usually, and here's Chitty on the stool.
Nice.
And then there's a big Chitty, which Blue Lizard Guts was very specific. This is not Funko size, but it doesn't matter because she's big so Chitty. Cute, and she's sitting in a box. Look at how
nice.
Cute.
That's so cute.
So thank you so much. Love the
so awesome. If people don't remember, Blue Lizard Guts also made, I don't know if you do the full shot of me, it might be visible, but me riding a dragon. I don't want to.
So cool.
All of me. There you go. Me riding a dragon, just awesome work. Absolutely love it, and love getting it out to other people too. That's really cool. Okay, everybody, you've been sending us comments, and we will send you responses. Guests sent to the super chat to say celebrity smack off. Jeez. Thaddeus Null says, lol, the 3 and the 6 are right next to each other. That does not explain it for how many people have sent that. There's something else going on, and I don't trust it. Billy V. Williams, hey Billy, says, when talking about his Oscars burying the lead. Exactly. On that night of all nights. Chase Essex sent in a super chat to say, guess you can say Will Smith left some fresh prints on Chris Rock's face.
Wow.
That's not right. Don't say that.
Good.
That's
very
also
good.
Funny. Anyway, Shack Attack says, someone or something is always the target of every joke. Laugh now, but don't get mad when it's your turn. Sure, yeah. Terrell Ross says, so Will Smith and his wife have an open relationship. He doesn't care if I'm not reading the end of that. That is, no. Thank you for the super chat. I'm not reading that comment, Jesus. So I don't always pre-screen these particularly well, but thank you for the comment. Can't read it. Anyway, Obi-Wan Kenobi, here to remember, 24 months, look at that, that's so nice of you. Thank you for being with us for 2 full years and gifted 10 community subs along the way, very nice.
Wow.
Maple Dragon gifted 2 subs as well. Holy Beer Dragon gifted 5 subs. Thank you to all of you. Maple Dragon, by the way, has been with us for 11 months. Says, thanks John and Fran for making my Monday awesome. Love you guys. And John, you make the news more digestible. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. We try to add context and make it tolerable. We want you to stay invested and active and to feel like you can do that and not lose your mind. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Kay the non-binary dragon's been with us for 12 months. Says my 3-month-old TYT baby's subiversary is here. Glad to spend it on a fantastic Monday. Hi, Fran. Hi, John. Hi. I guess. Thank you. Sleeper Service Dragon's been here for 12 months. Says my first TDR anniversary. Yay! Happy-ish effing birthday to me. Damn it. World peace would be a nice present. Hope springs eternal. Maybe just like a little bit of peace, like one less war. That'd be nice. Jacolby's been with us for 13 months. Says I love the Bitchuation Room. Very nice of you.
Thanks so much.
And yeah, that was very nice. And with that said, we got a lot more to talk about. So let's jump into this.
Navigation.
Going to the front.
So that is a guy freaking out in the drive-through line at a Jack in the Box, apparently in Moreno Valley, California, according to Lovely 9161, who posted it on TikTok. So you can see him shouting at the worker, getting out of his car. It escalated quite a bit from there, as you'll see.
Here we go. Did all that just to get the drink thrown at him? Oh, he's gonna hit too.
He looks stupid.
So as you can tell there, he is not just swearing, he is hurling the N-word, racial slurs in their face, and they responded, actually way more than we normally see in these sorts of things, throwing 2 drinks in his face and then punching him in the neck. You don't often see a neck punch in these sorts of videos, Francesca. Is that an acceptable response after this guy, like he reached in, he was going for the workers. At that point, are they allowed to punch him in the throat?
I just think we need more context, like what happened before? Like, did he get curly fries or were they regular? You know what I mean? Like, were the tacos, I don't know if they have curly fries at Jack in the Box, but like, were the tacos extra greasy? Because they need to be greasy in order to be good. I just again, people forgetting how to act. And also like, what is the excuse for saying racial slurs at somebody? There is none, ever. And every fast food worker should be paid $30 an hour. I don't want to hear a single, that's it. That is it. You're slanging burgers, you're covered in grease yourself. It's an inglorious, difficult task. And then you've got to deal with this dude. Come on.
It's an inglorious task that is also highly needed. And I know so many, like when you say that they should be paid $30 an hour, many people would respond like, no, that's crazy. They don't earn that. That's too much. Would you do it? $30 an hour? A lot of people, a lot of conservatives who would like recoil at that notion wouldn't take that job, even for $30 an hour. It's difficult work. And now it's even worse, having to deal with racist, like people shouting at you, let alone going for you. Like that guy, when he reached in there, I'm sure didn't expect to get punched, but he didn't know that Will Smith was doing research for a movie role. But anyway, we're gonna tie literally everything back to the slap. Look, I don't wanna see any violence. I don't want workers to ever feel like they need to be violent to defend themselves. I don't wanna see people punching each other. I want us to get to a point where we can just leave each other alone and just transfer over the tacos, which I agree with you, are greasy. They're also delightful. And how are they that cheap? That is like the cheapest per calorie food in America. But anyway, we've been hiding the real issue. As many people pointed out, once you zoom in, you can see in this shot, the real issue with what happened is not the violence, it's the socks with the thing. But anyway, user 4097 calls for him to be arrested for socks with sliders. Well, at the very least, I think his sentence should be more grievous because of the clothing. And the socks and sandals told me all I need to know about this guy. I'm sure there's great people who wear socks and sandals.
Do you want to see his toes though? You know what I mean? I'd be like, I don't want to see his toes. Also, there was like a calf tattoo. And like, I don't know, but it kind of looked like Jesus. And that would be really funny if it was religious.
I would not be surprised for it to be the face of Jesus. He just really wanted his breakfast jack. He just really wanted it and he doesn't want to wait. God, I love Jack in the Box. Now I'm gonna feel at risk when I go there. And that's unfortunate. Anyway, with that said, I'm gonna read 1 or 2 comments. So we're gonna jump into a arguably more substantive story in one sec. But Brickhouse Mama super chatted to say, I always tell my kids, when you get physical with someone after they make you angry, you make yourself the problem instead of what the other person did. Which was a super chat, I think, sent about the slap, but also applies for the Jack in the Box thing too. Cantankerous says, if your solution to a disagreement is violence, then you may have something in common with Putin, regardless of reason. Well, nobody wants anything in common with him. Ruku Dragon says, for NATO military assistance, Ukraine needs to change NATO's empathy to fear, empathy, higher cognitive function, fear, primitive binary, fight or flight. Well, I think they're, justifiably operating out of fear, the fear of, a wider conflict. And I know, even over the weekend, Zelensky was once again calling for, more direct assistance and all that. The calculation is still largely the same. It's difficult. It is very difficult. Anyway, GH says, John, I would appreciate, and this is a member's comment, if you would apologize less. It's your show, Dragon Daddy. I understand that, and thank you for the support, but I also believe that we can have a conversation. This is not just me dictating. I want to talk to everybody. And Infantry Chef says, don't listen to the whiny haters, John. I personally love the variety. No, but they're not being whiny haters. They disagree. Let's all be civil. Thank you for the support. But you're a whiny hater. Anyway, no, I appreciate the support and the criticism. Thank you. And Dana Manning says the GOP has an awful tax plan. Of course. Well, I'm actually just surprised that they have a plan. I didn't think that they did that anymore. It's garbage, but anyway. Okay, let's jump into something important. You're probably well aware at this point that there is massive income and wage inequality in America, but it's actually maybe even worse in a lot of ways than you think. And there is legislation designed to fix it if we could get our government to function for the 10 minutes required to pass something like this. But let's jump into the data. This is coming out of an OXFAM study that was released last week from OXFAM America, who says nearly 52 million workers, or almost 1/3 of the nation's labor force, earn less than $15 an hour. These workers whose annual income is less than $31,200 are disproportionately women and people of color. And to demonstrate that, while 1/4 of men earn less than $15 an hour, the figure is 40% for women. Half of working women of color reported the same. And the reason that this data is so important is when we have these debates about raising the minimum wage, which commonly is condensed into a conversation about making it $15 an hour, what are the things that you hear from people who don't like that? That's not necessary, because the only people who would benefit from that are people that we shouldn't respect, that don't deserve more money. They're college kids or something like that. These aren't serious workers. Who cares if they don't earn that much? Well, no, a lot of people, tens of millions of workers earn less. And when you break it down into groups like working women of color, the fact that it's half, how is that not a bigger part of the conversation about raising the federal minimum wage, Francesca?
No, it's huge. And obviously we're in a time when also women of color are being put in the crosshairs of who is going to suffer the most when Roe v. Wade is overturned, and currently when it's being completely trampled on in state after state after state. They're women, working class women, disproportionately people of color. These are people who are serving you your food at Jack in the Box. These are people who maybe are domestic workers, who work in your home, who are home care workers. These are all the people who feed and clothe and care for this country. And it's just like, here it slaps you in the face. 1/3 of workers, of all workers. We just come out of a week when the CEO of Applebee's and a head at Applebee's are excited by the fact that gas prices are up, because that means they're gonna squeeze their workers harder.
Yep.
And the average wage at Applebee's is $11. Just insanity, right? And so do we need a raise? You're damn right we need a raise. We need a federal minimum wage, and here it is. Here's the proof.
Exactly. Yeah, we got even more proof. I do want to give credit though to Maeve O'Byrne, who says they'll spend it all on drugs. Joe Manchin. Exactly. Like that is like there are people who will try to pretend like they care, but they'll manipulate the numbers, implying that it's all like 17-year-olds or something. Joe Manchin doesn't even care. Like he'll be even more dismissive and insulting than that. First of all, I highly doubt that the vast majority of them do illegal drugs, but if they want to spend it on drugs, okay. Joe Manchin's drinking a martini literally right now. As we're recording this, he's drinking a martini. Plenty of Republicans and Democrats who would stop this from being raised constantly getting drunk. People consume different things to feel better. Why do I eat as many Pop-Tarts as I do? Is that actually better? Anyway, I want to give you more numbers though. The idea that it's all young people, also not true. The vast majority of the workers earning less than $15 an hour are not teenagers. 89% are 20 or older. And again, even if they were young, they're doing work that merits more pay, but we gotta fact check them when they haven't brought the receipts. Millions of low-wage workers are also parents struggling to raise children on low wages. Among working single parents, 57% earn less than $15 an hour.
Wow.
And how many of the politicians that would fight raising the minimum wage pretend like they care about families and about kids and all of that fun families, values stuff? Well, those people could use more money. That's what they could use. They don't need more platitudes. They need higher wages. They need to be able to afford things. If you care so much about inflation, which you all love to pretend that you do, pay people more so they can afford the higher prices.
57% of parents,
single parents, yeah, working single parents, yeah, exactly. Now there is the Raise the Wage Act, so that's been pending in Congress since January of last year. We're in month 14 of waiting for the Democratic control of all of this to actually mean something. That would raise the federal hourly minimum wage to $15. So the last time it was raised was $7.25 an hour back in 2009. By law, an employer must pay the higher of the minimum salaries mandated by state or federal governments. And that means that you might be lucky and you might live in a state or a city or a locality that has a higher minimum wage. A number actually do, as we'll get to, but a lot don't. And if you're in a red area, you're even less likely to have a higher wage. And $7.25, that was not big money back in 2009. And you know how inflation has gone just over the past year. Now think about over 13 years, how much less it's worth now than it was then. Anyway, apparently, according to a report by USA Facts, a worker earning the $7.25 would have to put in over 73 work weeks worth of shifts to break even with family expenses. And that is not possible. But by the way, you can take a look at some of the geographic differences here, and you're not gonna be shocked by this, but you do need to know it. In Mississippi, 45% of the workforce earns less than $15 an hour. In Puerto Rico, it's 76%. Whereas if you go to Washington State, just 14% of workers earn less than $15 an hour. And you can see it coded, the darker the color, the higher the concentration of low wage workers in a state. And oh, what do you know? The South, and it's Florida, and Texas isn't doing that good. And it's these areas where they do not, like nowhere in America do we really value workers. That's just a part of our political culture, but far less so in those sorts of states, Francesca.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think there's a correlation between voting Republican and being an overworked, underpaid person, because you are strapped for time. You maybe were not able to access any kind of higher education. You're maybe strapped with debt, and Republicans love overworked people because they're easy to manipulate, right? And so there is a correlation between having more self-determination and a higher wage and a higher minimum wage and voting Democrat. I'm sorry, and again, Democrats are all kinds of messed up. Like we're a disaster. But it's just like the proof is right there. Republicans rely on exploitation. And not to bring this back to Chris Rock, but let's go there. Because I'm gonna be team Chris Rock on this debate. If you're gonna popularity contest me, hell no. I Am Legend can go away forever. It's always Chris Rock. He's always been on the side of he's always done political comedy. He's hilarious, he's amazing. He spoke out during the Bush years a lot. And he has that quote, hey, which is when someone pays you minimum wage, they're saying, hey, look, if I could pay you less, I would, but it's against the law.
Yep.
And
exactly.
Spot on.
Yeah. Big fan of Will Smith though. But anyway, yes. And by the way, if you live in one of these states and your wages haven't gone up, first of all, many are fighting hard to change that. So thank you. But for those who love the right's way, how you like the obsession with trans people in the bathroom? Is that raising your wages? You're getting really worked up about that. They're talking about it constantly on Fox News. Is that helping your wages? Is that helping you afford health insurance? You're gonna buy a house off of blocking trans people from going to your bathroom? Is that how that works? Anyway, Joe Willis, happy birthday. I saw your super chat. Hope it's a good one. Feral Dragon has been a tier 3 member for 13 months. It says, been a great 13 months, thanks. Just wanna say most countries don't give a crap about minimum wage family rights till population decline. We will be there soon, maybe, we'll see. But we do have one last thing to talk about very briefly. Let's jump into this.
When you look at the origins of the pandemic, the virus, God bless you.
Ted Cruz sucks and he just has to laugh it off. You remember that? that might well have been the high point of the People's Convoy. And you're thinking, wait, how could that possibly be? Like it was people, like even in the convoy, they're mocking the politician that came, because he actually came. Ted Cruz was there, and he was one of the only politicians that actually engaged with the American version of the Canada trucker protest. It's gone now, by the way. They're breaking up. Co-organizer Mike Landis announced on Sunday night that the group would pack its things up in the coming days and drive back to California. That announcement comes after lead organizer Brian Braze fled Hagerstown again over the weekend amid continued splintering within the group. He said, "I am not running away," and then he ran away. He had previously told the Daily Beast that the convoy would go on indefinitely. This is a process that we were hoping to do diplomatically. We're in it for the long haul. We could go indefinitely right now. That's what it takes. We're not going away. But they're going away. They're driving back to California, and they're planning on doing a more southern route, so it's a little warmer this time. But why? Because nobody's paying attention to them, including the right. Fox News hasn't really cared about it, despite their obsessive coverage of what was going on in Canada. Ted Cruz came, Ron Johnson came, and a few House Republicans. No other Republicans, no Democrats. It just never materialized, Francesca, despite all the reason in the world to think that the right would be obsessed with it and that could last until the midterms.
I think it's really curious that it didn't turn out, despite the amount of propaganda, despite the amount of lauding from the far right, despite Ted Cruz coming out and whoever. It is actually really curious. And I think the reality is, and I've done a fair amount of grassroots organizing. I understand splinter groups. I know what it is to organize a bunch of people. You know what this feels like? This feels like a protest that was not astroturfed by far right groups and by think tanks. That's how you know that it wasn't, because it didn't actually turn out. You know what was? The Tea Party movement. You know what was? The MAGA movement, the Stop the Steal rally that we know that now Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, was involved in that. We know that Ted Cruz himself was also more intimately involved with, to say nothing of all the other Congress people who were also involved with that. So it's so interesting that you're like, oh yeah, all the think tanks and their dark money are putting their money into things like the CRT debate, the bathroom, the trans, banning trans people from, playing the sport of their gender, right? Like, it is fascinating to see what they will cherry pick and what has traction and what does not. And it is so clear that this just wasn't one of those things.
And the funny thing is that they expected that it would be. Like they really thought the money would come flooding in. And I guess they just came a couple weeks too late. The attention fled, the money wasn't there, and so it's falling apart. And again, they have all the right in the world to protest. They're not entitled to being elevated to national significance for weeks at a time. Anyway, that is all the time that we have, Francesca. It is always a delight to have you here and to have you hosting the Bitchuation Room. Where can people see that?
Oh my God, you can see it on my YouTube channel at Franny Fio. We stream every Sunday, 5/8 Eastern. You can also watch it on Twitch at Franny Fio or listen on any podcast platform, the Bitchuation Room.
Awesome. Well, the show is over, but you got two things to look forward to. In a little bit, for our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube, we're gonna be doing our top 10 list, top 10 reasons to look forward to the summer. It was a viewer request, we're gonna dive into it. But in the short term, Dr. Rashad Richey is about to go live with Indisputable. So don't go anywhere. A lot more to look forward to on TYT. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.